Doris Kearns Goodwin is one of our best-known and best-selling presidential historians. Now she's out with a new book, but this time it's a love story and it's personal, as our Robert Costa explains.
Please welcome the great Doris Kearns Goodwin, everybody.
Doris Kearns Goodwin, come out here, Doris.
Doris Kearns Goodwin is a rare presence on our national stage, a historian with academic cred and pop culture cachet.
Here's Doris Kearns Goodwin.
Born in 1809 into a...
The teacher is Doris Kearns Goodwin.
Today we explore Lincoln's 1861.
Her work, of course, is serious, but she shares it with joy and sometimes a laugh.
It's fun when a younger person comes up to you and says, you know, my kids saw you on The Simpsons, or my grandchildren. They thought, this is really exciting. Maybe you are something after all.
Goodwin, now 81, is renowned for telling the story of America, often through the prism of the presidency. Her latest book, about her late husband, does that too. And it's deeply personal. An unfinished love story is about Richard Goodwin's adventures in the turbulent 1960s, writing speeches for titans like JFK, LBJ, and RFK. And it's about Richard and Doris.
He was an extraordinary character who somehow traversed almost every important moment in the 1960s. He's like Zelig, in a certain sense, in the 60s.
Some of the most iconic lines from the 60s came right from Richard Goodwin's typewriter. The Great Society, Ripples of Hope, We Shall Overcome.
Dick loved poetry, he loved drama. I mean, using the anthem of the Civil Rights Movement in the middle of the great speech after the Selma demonstrations was just a moment that was almost a moment of genius that came to him.
And we shall overcome.
Before becoming a fixture at the side of presidents, Goodwin had a fast rise. Harvard Law, Supreme Court clerk, and then congressional investigator of the rigged TV quiz shows of the 1950s.
My name is Dick Goodwin. I'm an investigator with the Subcommittee on Legislative Oversight of the United States Congress.
Robert Redford's 1994 film Quiz Show dramatized his real-life crusade to prove the fix was in.
Don't treat me like I'm some member of your goddamn fan club. Are you telling me everybody got the answers but you?
You're so persistent, Dick. I really envy that.
President Kennedy later brought Goodwin into his inner circle.
The genius of our scientists.
After Kennedy's death, so did LBJ, who looked to Goodwin for some rhetorical magic, as the LBJ tapes reveal.
Well, I just asked him if he can't put some sex in it. I asked him if he couldn't put some rhyme in it and some beautiful Churchillian phrases.
I need more sex and rhythm and Churchillian phrases in my speeches. The tapes were just so revealing, especially when you hear him talking about my husband that way.
And you write about how Johnson could be so flat and dry in his public remarks, but in private.
If people had known the way he talks on the tapes, if they had listened to him tell stories, they were brilliant. The private Lyndon Johnson is the most formidable, interesting character I think I've ever met in my life.
Doris Kearns Goodwin first met Johnson in 1967, when the towering Texan asked the young White House fellow for a dance.
I couldn't believe when I read this. You met him at a dance.
Yeah, I mean, what a way. He really twirled me around the floor, and then he whispered to me that he wanted me to be assigned directly to him in the White House.
Johnson's advisors were initially on edge about her anti-war views, but she quickly became someone he trusted, talking to her for hours during the bittersweet twilight of his life.
He could be mean at times, but underneath there was this force that wanted to make the country a better place. And the war in Vietnam cut much of that in two. And without that, there's no question he would have been one of the great presidents. But even now, he is one of those great presidents.
Doris and Richard Goodwin met at Harvard after LBJ left office and were married in 1975. They lived here in leafy Concord, Massachusetts, raising a family and working until Richard's death in 2018. And the couple's book collection now lines the shelves of the local library.
Never would I have an office quite so elegant as the great room here in the Concord Public Library.
These days, Goodwin stays busy with history, but also keeps a close eye on politics.
What's at stake in this upcoming election?
It's not an exaggeration to say democracy is at stake. I mean, I think about Lincoln when he said that early on that the central point of the fight of the Civil War was really whether democracy would exist. Because if you could decide, as a southern set of states did, that they lost an election, so they're going to secede from the Union, then democracy is an absurdity. And that's the hallmark of our system, is that you lose an election and you accept it with grace.
What do you say to Americans who look at what's happening with this election, they just want to tune out, not pay attention?
Tuning out and not paying attention is an action. In fact, somehow not participating is even worse than many other things you can do, because it means you're saying, I don't care, it's not important. And that's a cowardly thing to say, because it's not true.
And Americans, she says, can always turn to the past for lessons.
I still think if we look back at history, that somehow America's pulled through each one of these tough times and we've come out strengthened. It's hard to see exactly how that's going to happen now, but it's going to happen only if people start marching, only if people start fighting for the rights they believe are being taken away. When conscience is fired and the majority will is exercised, we somehow come through, and I think we will again.